everyone, and welcome to the second PAX Panel event, where we bring together industry leaders to discuss topics and trends in the waning months of 2020. I'm Rick Lundstrom, Editor-in-Chief of PAX International Magazine. It's the second day of fall in the Northern Hemisphere, and in the year ending as few would have predicted at the start. Like our last PAX panel, which was hosted by our editor, Jane Hobson, we delved into amenity kits and the contents in the COVID-19 world we live in. We are today looking at another cabin service item, packaged food products and catering. With us, we have representatives from 2 food developers and a caterer with a worldwide reach. In episode 2, we have a virtual roundtable discussion where panelists share insights and packaging solutions with an eye towards hygiene and instilling passenger confidence, how food concepts and designs are pivoting to keep pace with the pandemic, and what challenges are surfacing in the catering units due to the current conditions. Giving us insights this hour, we will be Martin Hambleton, Head of Procurement at En Route International, whose company has developed 2 recent lines of products for in-flight service since the start of this year. We have Vasilios Georgakopoulos, I hope I pronounced that right. He's a Director of Customer Concepts at LSG Group, whose expertise lies in multicultural operational innovation, translating brand aspirations, consumer insights, and profitability challenges into compelling food and beverage concepts for organizations around the world. We also have with us Alan Hayes, Sales and Managed Services Director for dnata. He was previously with Alpha LSG, which he joined in 2011, after nearly a decade in charter aviation. In the field of crew-based management and in-flight retail management roles. He worked on the airline side with TUI and EasyJet. Thank you all panelists for joining us today. And let's start with a general outlook question. At this uncertain time, change is at least something we can expect with certainty. Are there any general changes to packaging and food presentations that you expect are coming for the industry? And do you foresee any other specific trends? Let's start with Vasilios. Anything you can tell us?
Right. So, as you all know, the whole world stood still in March 2020, and until then, the whole airline industry and flight services industry was booming. There were investments, and airlines were really putting emphasis on the in-flight experience and the catering product. Suddenly, we went to very drastic solutions. So, with disposable equipment, it was a kind of, I wouldn't call it downgraded experience, but very simplified processes that aimed to protect cabin crew, minimize contact between cabin crew and passengers. And because we didn't know what was happening. So the first big impact was the increased use of disposable equipment. A lot of disposable equipment, plastic, paper, cardboard, everywhere, substituting rotable equipment in every class, from first class, business to economy, all across the board. And I'm sure my colleagues will confirm that. But we now see, hopefully, a return back to the previous standards with some amendments, with some modifications. So as far as concepts are concerned, most of the legacy carriers that we talk to seem to be going back to the old standards. However, the trend that we see most emerging is an increased interest for sustainability. And sustainability applying not only on equipment, on packaging, but also on food and on different aspects of the in-flight catering experience. And I can elaborate further on sustainability if you would like me to, or I can just stick on the facts about equipment.
Martin, maybe you could have any additional insight on this?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, sustainability has never really been more important as a trend, as an option for passengers. You know, it's a global movement, and it's moving rapidly at pace. You know, I think it started with reduction in plastic initially, and that's moved into further areas. You know, more recyclability, you know, more communication for passengers and more touch points that they see and feel, to see airlines and our industry moving into that area. You know, I think behaviors are changing, you know, the way people are thinking, the way airlines are changing. And, you know, people need to adapt. The industry needs to adapt and move quickly with that. And thankfully, you know, that there is this desire, as Vasilya said, for safer operations and, you know, what we call light touch or one touch movements on planes now to serve the food. And I think that's very much at the forefront of that trend coming through, you know, tied in with sustainability and how we can deliver that, you know, not only just, you know, locally, but globally as well as part of that process. You know, these are all passionate areas for a lot of people. But I think the trend is very much developing rapidly into that area. And thankfully, yeah, the industry is working together, I think, on delivering those options for passengers.
Alan, from a catering standpoint, are you seeing the same things, and are you having to adapt to this sustainability initiative at the same time as a virus is still very much a factor?
Absolutely. Just echoing really what Vasilius and Martin have said so far. You know, the sustainability agenda with airlines was really significant prior to this sort of pandemic, and you know, there was a clear move, as Martin said, to start looking at the removal of single-use plastics, disposable materials that weren't, you know, compostable, and to see how we could influence, you know, the waste management within the catering facilities. And I think, you know, through this process, there's maybe a slight misconception that those priorities have gone by the wayside. Our airline customers haven't put them by the wayside. There's been without doubt a shift in focus in terms of how they reactivate themselves and how they restart. You know, we've seen a lot of less demand, if you like, for sort of open food and open consumption materials, but that's not come at the expense of the quality of the product proposition the customer's looking to put on. And that's obviously being driven by the airline's desire to minimize contact. And as Martin said, this one drop sort of solution. So they're trying to find solutions to maintain the quality of the product and the integrity on board of the service proposition and the food quality, but minimize the contact in the another specific sort of trend around food presentation, if you like, is I think there's been a clear emphasis placed on improving our diet through this whole pandemic, and there's been real connections between people's diets and their effectiveness of being able to survive the virus itself, and we're starting to see that in some of the dietary trends that airlines are looking to start to restart with. So we had many conversations around suitable products for particular dietary needs, and again, in a COVID secure way. You know, so some of these products have to be very, very specific, not open foods. So it's still going with the sort of packaging threads that we're seeing, but that level of choice and quality around some of these dietary trends has come really front and center.
En route came out with two products very, very quickly this spring. The first one is the light touch packaging that you had, and that was launched, I guess, like around early spring or late spring. And then a bakery and cheese item that came out later this summer. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the product development and how it went, and what were some of the priorities that you had.
Yeah, of course. I mean, essentially that was about reassuring the customer and making sure that we were able to deliver a quick and adaptable solution almost immediately in the aftermath of COVID. And I think it's fair to say there was some panic in the industry. There was some unknowns in the industry about what it was going to look like. You know, literally, you know, passengers numbers dropped dramatically, very quickly indeed. But one thing we wanted to do was to build in the speed and agility into that product. And of course, I think we recognized quite quickly that there was an awful lot of food excess in the industry, be it packaged as well as, you know, frozen and unfortunately fresh. But how could we utilize that, and how could airlines and caterers utilize that? And essentially, we are supplying airlines and caterers, so that problem was magnified in our discussions. And then, of course, it had to be global. So the light touch program was developed purely to deliver the packaging concept to the airline or the caterer, or a finished box which had packaged food inside it that was safer to eat and serve. And we developed the options to drop in hot meals, not to have a hot meal, some with waters, some without waters, etc. So the real flexibility was there to deliver that. And of course that doesn't come easily. You have to create something that's absolutely sustainable in its nature of the packaging itself, but also deliverable globally across the whole globe. And that was one of the challenges, and I think we rose to that very nicely. The cheese selection was really on the back of our successful premium cheese program that we have globally, and that was how do we serve that cheese properly, without the crew having to necessarily touch the packaging and interact with it too much. So we developed a process whereby the lid became the plate, and therefore that was part of the whole package. The lid could be lifted off and the cheese could be positioned on that overturned lid and then served to the passenger in that way. So again, it really was about reassuring the customer really, and making sure the food was in a safer operation for those products. I'm glad to say, it was fast-paced development. It was listening to people, looking at industry, and taking what the industry really needs to do quickly. And ultimately, great fun to develop as well, of course.
Yeah, Vasilios, any comparable product from the LSG Group that maybe you could tell us about?
Yes, absolutely. So we had to react in a very fast and agile manner, as Martin said, and with minimum time. After we heard the news and the airlines started changing procedures, serving procedures, and we had to adapt in two ways. We had to find, first of all, to minimize the portfolio and standardize it on a regional basis. And we managed to create solutions, hot solutions and cold solutions, and create a standardized minimal portfolio of products that could be adapted for rotable and disposable equipment. And we did it on a regional basis. Why this happened on a regional basis? Because I wish we had Martin's product, but the logistics network was not very helpful during this period. It was difficult to get some nominated products, so we had to cook things in-house. Volumes were not there, so we had to adapt very quickly on the food. And we had to make do with whatever we had very, very fast. Plus, this was combined with the minimum amount of staff that we had available in every unit. So we made the best we could out of this situation. But the lesson learned about this was, especially when it comes to equipment, we have been requested, we have been asked to provide disposable equipment for some customers, and every market reacted differently. Colleagues in Hong Kong, in Sao Paulo, in North America had slightly different approaches. So in order for this not to happen again and to have a more unified approach, we have now created a signature collection of disposable equipment that can be used in similar situations. And it has been designed keeping in mind minimum contact with cabin crew, maximum passenger satisfaction, and everything has the perception of premiumness and safety. That's very, very important, because it's important to pacify the consumers, to install a kind of confidence that the food is wholesome. And that brings me to another point, if I may say so, that we also found out during this period that we haven't done enough PR as an industry in general, that the food is quite safe to consume as it is today. We operate in a very, very strictly regulated industry, and we go beyond sometimes HACCP standards, but passengers still have a perception that they can get illnesses from the flight, airborne illnesses, or the food is not protected and everything. And I don't know what my other colleagues have to say about this, but this is something that I feel that we need to do more to blow our own trumpet, if you want, about how good and safe in-flight food is.
Well, you're getting some help from the Airline Catering Association, I've noticed lately. They seem, whenever I visit the website, whenever I see news reports, Fabio and the group over there seem to be, I guess, telling the story of airline food and in a very visible way, particularly over in Europe. Alan, got one for you. You just opened that new unit in Dublin, and all this was going on in the midst of the whole virus thing. What did dnata have to do in the midst of all this construction and development to make a kitchen that was ready for the COVID-19 world?
Yeah, I mean it's quite an unusual thing to have a success story in the middle of this crisis. But, we're obviously hugely excited about the new facility in Dublin, and effectively what that facility does for us is quadruples our capacity in Ireland as it currently stands. We've now got the capability to deliver up to 40,000 in-flight meals every day from that facility, and we really look forward to the days when we get back to that capacity. We'll get anywhere near that capacity at some point in the future. I think what I would say is that despite the impact of COVID-19, our teams across the globe that came together to manage this project, and the partners that were involved in the operation and the construction, worked tirelessly to make sure that COVID-19 wasn't an excuse for that to slip. We wanted to make sure that facility was done, it was ready, and that we were ready to serve customers, and in particular Aer Lingus, who was acquired ahead of this, in readiness for when they started operating the other side of it. And it was delivered on time, was delivered on budget, and as planned. In terms of the physical building itself, really sort of just echoing what Vasilios just mentioned just a moment ago, really, we already, as a good business, operate with incredibly high controls already in place, and the design specifications that we put with any building, whether it's a refurbishment or a new building facility, already reflect those sort of high levels of control that are in place. So we start from a significant position of strength, really, in terms of the hygiene measures that are in place in any of these types of facilities. Obviously, like any business above that, we've had to introduce a series of sort of COVID secure procedures in terms of the physical distancing in the facilities and testing to make sure that any visitors or colleagues come in and that it's safe for them to work, and that we encourage a safe working place. But essentially the design of the building remained as planned. We didn't have to do anything specifically different. It was just a case of maintaining the high levels of protocol that we've got in place to start with.
Yeah, but you have units in like all over Ireland, right? It's in Cork and in a few other areas as well. Did you have to do anything with those?
Right the way across the globe, in terms of what we've had to do, and I sort of just touch on your point around the ACA just a few moments ago. Obviously, the guidelines complement what's already quite an incredibly stringent set of processes. It's regularly audited, it's regularly monitored, and what they've done, and more generally, is effectively ensured that the industry is aligned. And we've had to put some very COVID-specific steps in all of our units across the globe to make sure that processes are consistent, and that people feel safe to work, and that customers get the comfort that we are operating in a safe environment, putting a safe product on board their aircraft. And that's been valuable assurance to our customers, and we worked hard on our communication outwards to our customers, because as I say, the ACA do a fantastic job in terms of promoting the activity that's going on, just making sure that level of comfort reach our customers, and that our customers can then talk to their customers, has been a key part of our communication process.
Wanted to find out a little bit about how packaging is designed and developed in-house, and I was going to ask Martin, do you design your own packaging items in the manufacturing process?
Absolutely. We have an in-house creative team that has many years' experience in the industry. That's aligned with our significant investment in our own in-house capabilities and our creative design studio within our office. we are able to design things very quickly. I'm astounded sometimes how quickly we do design things. That gives us an ability to produce virtually any material downstairs in our design studio. What that means is that we're able to then really innovate very quickly and bring together ideas. But of course, we can't do that without our global partners in manufacturing that help us bring those alive. And also, you know, we are en route, are always constantly innovating. It's our daily, you know, we do daily here in the business. What we're trying to do is create something that is deliverable, you know, to our customers. And what the team really do is take that, you know, holistic approach to innovation and look at the entire marketplace. You know, ultimately, for us, our customer is an airline or a caterer. So we're trying to adapt those innovation processes to meet that demand. And the ability to produce in-house is significant when it comes to sales collateral. You know, our team are able to, you know, go to a sales meeting with a physical box, a physical piece of packaging that has been actually produced in-house, and the customer can touch and feel and examine that product in the right material, in the right colors, with the right branding, and have a much more experience in that area. And of course, you know, our investment is being significant in that and has developed that in more detail. So I think for us, really, you know, the expertise lies in manufacturing. So, you know, bringing that together with our creative team for our innovation process is fundamental to how we can react. You know, and it's a buzzword, innovation. It really is driving, you know, what the industry does. But the ability to produce samples and products in-house is for us a key element that we have to do that. Absolutely.
I guess you must have a challenge, you know, in this environment when you talk about the tactile ability to touch and hold products. I guess a lot of the time you're doing your presentations exactly the way we're doing it right now.
Exactly right. We developed a virtual presentation suite. I think a number of people in our industry have done that for that very reason. You know, we're a truly global, you know, industry. So the ability to present, you know, our bakery selections, our cheese selections, our snack selections over the video conferencing dimension is interesting. And I think, you know, there's a lot more of that happening. That in itself is driving innovation on how we use technology. You know, I think our team have become lighting experts in the last 6 months, lighting studios and how that works, you know, and pedaling faster to make the internet go better, that sort of thing. We really are, you know, honing in on those areas. But it is all about adapting and all about delivering that solution for our customers. And I think, you know, I think all of us together find ways of doing that, using innovation as best we can to do it.
Vasilios, how are you approaching, I guess, presentations and customer interaction these days? Are you, do you have a battle plan when you go in to I guess, show them the best side of your products?
We might have a couple of aces under our sleeve about this subject. I can't reveal too much right now, but yes, to echo what Martin has said, virtual presentations are, you know, is something that we are really exploring. Nevertheless, personally speaking, I believe that food is a very emotional subject. It's something very personal, very emotional. You can easily ask a customer in Paris to make a presentation about a Korean product that will be uplifted from Incheon, from Seoul, but at the end of the day, there's something very personal about selecting food, seeing, tasting, and seeing how it fits on a tray setup or in the real world. So my personal prediction for this one will be that perhaps in the future we will have some, yes, we'll have a hybrid model of some virtual presentations, but the majority of them, they will remain analog, totally. And our expertise, especially in my department, in our department, in customer concepts, is seeing things very much from a helicopter point of view, very much on behalf of the being the eyes of the customer, how they would have seen it themselves or see things that they haven't seen themselves. And in order to do that, you need the contact. You need to discuss with all the stakeholders. You need to have face-to-face interactions. So yes, a mixture between two, but analog, I think, remains and will remain a little bit more prominent in the future.
Well, Alan, your kitchens do their share of presentations as well. And some of them are for very premium, high quality meal products, very important presentations that I've been to several of them myself and watched them. And when if an airline comes in with a business class, they want a new business class product, they want a new business class meal selection. How are you how are you doing that virtually?
Been doing quite a few things really with this to try and keep the emotional attachment with the food still there. Similar to Martin, similar to Vasilios, we've obviously been having great success in terms of delivering virtual meal presentations. We've had some really good customer feedback from that, and it certainly doesn't casualize the experience, but it doesn't replicate it fully. I think, we think there'll be virtual presentations for some time. Some of that will be cost driven from the airline. That'll be a cost consideration. And I think in the longer term, we do, obviously the need to taste the food will come back. What we have done to great success is once we've done the meal presentation and the airline has returned back to sort of some level of menu cycle, we've then maintained chef's tables on a virtual basis as well. So as we are producing for the flight, we've had all sorts of different mechanics for this in the past, from checklists to photographs in terms of customers being able to visualize and see the actual production. We're now actually taking that live, and we're doing live chef's tables and actually then posting samples that are blasted down then for them to be actually transported on the flight for the customer to actually taste and experience at the other end. So we've been trying to find ways to make the food taste or get the taste profile across, and at the moment the customers are understanding the predicament we're in, but appreciating the efforts that we're putting together so that they can still visualize, see, trust the quality we're putting out, and actually taste it at the end.
Settings and I guess meal service from what I'm getting, there isn't so much of a sort of an a la carte type meal service that's going now. It's more of a tray setting, single tray setting, in order to minimize the amount of touch points between the flight attendants and the passengers. Are you seeing that, and are you seeing anything else in the way of how that meal is being delivered on board?
We've seen a number of things, to be honest. We've seen, as you say, airlines are trying to minimize the interaction in the cabin, less physical contact, and trying to stick to what's strictly necessary. And we've obviously seen things like bowls of nibbles and hot towels and those types of things from a service proposition being removed. We've obviously seen customers being a little bit more conscious about some of the individual wraps and those type of things to try and sort of reduce the potential for contact. But I certainly see what we've seen from our customer base is a very mixed model approach sort of moving forwards. We've seen some airlines looking to continue to work with sort of rotable product and the rotable equipment and obviously the environmental and service ethos that flows with, as well as the food quality. Some are using that as an upsell opportunity from a more simplistic menu, and actually looking to generate some level of ancillary revenue from it, which is a cost and revenue and margin. It seems to be a major discussion point now, more than ever before with our airline partners. And obviously to that end, other airlines are looking for that buzzword, Martin, innovation. And we do work very closely with Martin's team at En Route in terms of some of the product design solutions and the development solutions for customers. Cost is going to be key for a number of our aviation partners. We know that. So a product that reduces labour costs for assembly, for production, for wash, but actually maintains a good quality ethos of the look and feel and that single drop. And then they benefit from centralised production, and the centralised supply chains. That massively appeals to the customers at the moment, and they're starting to see the benefits of still being able to offer a quality proposition, but create some space on board for other revenue channels. Whether that be upselling, more premium class meals, or even, dare I say, putting retail solutions in as well. So there's some real interesting trends that we're seeing in terms of the service material.
I'm wondering, one of the things I was thinking, I was wondering when at some point when all of this ends, and we're able to, even the course of a vaccine or however it does end, do when this virus is not a threat, what's it going to be like? Maybe do you see all these things staying? Maybe we could just sort of go around the room with that, and we could start with Martin. At the end of coronavirus, what is your product going to look like?
I think for us, I mean, people always want to travel. Hope they will. Even with the current challenges, you still see passengers are still flying. There's still a demand to go somewhere, albeit subdued. I think for us, post the virus and post the pandemic, adaptability needs to be key to delivering a solution. Continuous improvement through what you're doing and developing and delivering to market, very much part of that. Possibly, you could argue, possibly too early to really tell at this stage. I think a lot of airlines are, developing themselves, and of course, don't forget, airline teams are changing as well, which doesn't help the situation. So I think possibly, you could argue possibly too early. But from what we've seen in the last 6 months, we do know that the trends that we've talked today about are progressing rapidly. But I do also generally believe that collaboration is key amongst the airlines, the caterers, and the service providers. Without that collaboration, I don't think that we can necessarily drive it forward otherwise. I just think that the way the industry is moving at the moment, there will be a continual slowly uptake in numbers. But as that changes the model, changes the delivery, changes the food, changes the customer's perception of what they get and what they pay for, all of that is going to be bottomed out and continue to be, I think, key to how we work.
Vasilios, you talk to people all over the world. Obviously, you've been telling us what in a post-COVID world, what do you see?
Okay, we see mainly, after talking to quite a few customers around the world, from Asia to North America, Latin America, emerging markets, four specific outcomes. First of all, airlines have spent quite a lot of time and money, investments on the product. They have built a brand. Food and catering will remain very important for the brand of every airline and to reinforce the brand. Price always remains important for passengers to select airlines, but especially for longer flights, catering is and will remain important. So passengers are becoming very vocal. So when they don't like something, they make the airlines know very quickly via social media. Airlines react. So customer experience is very important. That's the first thing. The second thing we see is, as I mentioned before, sustainability is here to stay. Absolutely, and it goes beyond the July 21 single-use, the ban of single-use material imposed by the European Union. As we're coming out of this period of the COVID pandemic, we'll see airlines reconsidering what can be done, going back more or less to where they were before in terms of thinking when it comes to sustainability. And this is linked to the third thing that we have found out, that airlines are thinking of how to invest in satisfying needs in a manner that gives more on the return of investment. For instance, one solution for all sectors might not be the best. For instance, from 0 to 4 hours, there might be different models depending on the sector, depending on the passenger profile. So there might be a diversification of products offered by the same airline. And the fourth thing is the enabler, that's digitalization, that's technology that will allow airlines to offer perhaps in the future a little bit more tailored products, not necessarily as a revenue opportunity, but for increasing passenger satisfaction. For instance, I can think immediately of two airlines, premium airlines, legacy airlines, who might go in the future on a pre-select in economy without charging anything. So these are the four main things that we see in the future after the post-COVID era.
Well, the connected cabin. It's been here. It's been going on for as long as several years now. And I guess as aircraft, they develop new aircraft, narrow bodies with longer range. It's going to be an interesting time. Meals will be changing.
But
Alan,
if I may add something here, we also see that we have asked from customers, we have talked to them, and they told us that there is a challenge between delivering a very customized experience in economy and having a minimum amount of cabin crew. So everything has to be very realistic. You cannot expect to have a business class or first class service in economy when you don't have the resources. And this is something to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Alan, dnata is involved in a pretty aggressive kitchen development program. You see it in the United States. It's coming along very quickly. It's changing the landscape of catering in the United States in some ways. Any kitchen designs that are going to be done in the future in a post-COVID world? Any thoughts on what might be used?
I mean, similar to what the guys have said, I think it's far too early to tell really in terms of what the industry will look like the other side of it, and what those designs and alterations would look like. What I would say, what hasn't changed through all of this is the customer's desire for a high-class culinary experience. That hasn't changed. And I think the specifications that customers are trying to fly with or are flying with right now reflect that. And I've got no doubt that there'll still be a requirement for premium meal propositions. They'll come back quickly and probably first. Premium passengers expect premium products, and airlines are well aware of that, and they need them, and they'll need them in the recovery. I am sure you'll see, in terms of the catering of the future, you'll see a lot more sort of country and global centres of excellence where these culinary standards and levels of innovation are developed from a central perspective. We're certainly looking at it for Europe, in terms of how we think and how we can start to shape standards and really start to react to customer demands. And what that does to our physical infrastructure, who knows? It's too early to tell, but I think, what I would say is that we are obviously a very agile business, and we'll react to whatever those changes need to look like.
Will the emphasis on local packaging, local food, local products, you think remain the same?
There'll be some level of localization. There will be some level of localization, without doubt. I think that is part and parcel of the sort of high-class culinary experience. I think one of our experiences as right now is, with the supply chain models as they currently are, we've had to adapt our centralized purchasing functions quite quickly to some areas having levels of local supply. And in some respects, it's actually triggered some good feedback from the carriers where they're seeing local, sort of responsibly sourced, seafoods and meats and fruits and vegetables that's going into the product proposition in some of the countries. And that's just in the UK, for example, in terms of differentials of sourcing between London and Scotland. So, there's still going to be some levels of sort of global national supply and national specifications, but the supply chain element has forced some level of localization, and it's actually worked in the benefit of generating that sort of high-class culinary experience.
All right, we can put an end to this second session of the PAX panel, and I wanted to thank every one of you. We've had a great discussion. I think we've all learned a lot, maybe a little bit about each other and a little bit about what the future's holding in the way of food on board. And so, with that, I would like to say thank you all again, and hope to be in touch with you sometime when we can all talk in person.